Thank you, Chris. Okay, so I'm sorry about that. I'm going to have to shut one of these computers down. It's going to be pinging all day. So in the draft, if you notice, I'm going to start right at the beginning, and I have course or conference. Does the committee care about whether or not we use course or conference, or should it just be courses conducted via the internet?
I think it should be both because we use them throughout. We use course and conference both.
Okay, so you'll accept that change, right? Okay, thank you. And then if you look in the same paragraph, I have I'm trying to start tweaking the language. So I have set forth in 309, blah, blah, blah. Is that change okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I'll just say okay. And then in the next line, I attempted to define these things, and so I'm open to suggestions on whether or not the verbiage is what we want it to be under webinar and on demand. Any changes?
Actually, I have a change that isn't on there, but I just realized it doesn't. It's a question of whether it's approved by the LSP board members or by the LSP board. I think it's the board as a group that is the deciding factor, not board members.
Okay, so where are you, Gail? So I can.
I'm under board approved course, means a course that is submitted by a course provider or an LSP and approved by, and crossed out, it's a, because it says LSP board members, but I think it's actually the LSP board that makes the decision, not the members. I mean, in other words, it's not approved by the board members, it's approved by the board in the end.
Okay, so you're at board approved courses?
No,
and,
yes, that's where I am.
Okay, board approved course means a course that is submitted by a course provider or an LSP and approved by the board.
The LSP board is what I think it should say.
Okay.
I know it said the other thing, but I think that's not correct.
Yeah, it
in
did.
The way it really works.
Okay. Other discussion?
I agree,
Okay.
Patrick. Yep.
Yep, got it, Patrick. By the LSP board. I didn't change that, obviously, as you asked. I've, been tracking the changes. So, okay, good. Moving down to.
Well, it would be the same change, Beverly. It would be the same change in board approved conference.
Okay, let me go back.
And in the following one, board approved conference workshop, it would still be approved by the LSP board, and it should say LSP board, not board members. It should specifically say LSP board.
Okay, I'll make that change. Strike board, the LSP board. I agree. All right. Very good. I've noted those changes, and I'm asking that you move to the definition of course provider.
Yep.
And just look at the language as I've, tweaked it, and tell me what you think.
Yeah, actually, I had a comment, and it has to do with the stuff in red. And I don't know if you're looking at the whatever, but anyway, it says before awarding continuing education credits, the course provider must certify that all attendance requirements have been met. And that's not true. It's before awarding continuing education credits. And then, so it's, future tense, and then it's past, it's like a future thought, and then it's past tense, have been met.
Okay, so let me just get with you here. Okay, so it should read course provider.
No, that's
Where,
okay.
before,
No, that isn't
before,
okay. Sorry, Beverly,
okay,
I made a mistake. Course
go ahead.
provider means any individual or organization. And then I don't think you should take out the parentheses because you need some punctuation to set that statement apart. Like it's like a parenthetical expression. So I actually think putting it in parentheses was fine.
Mhm. I disagree. I don't like parentheses in a regulation, but if that's the way
Yes,
you know
then
what,
Beverly, set it off by commas.
I,
But you have to set it off by something. Any
no,
organization.
I understand that, Gail. So if you want me to put the parentheses back in, I will. It absolutely is missing. Course provider means any individual organization. So it does lack punctuation. I agree
But
with
here's
you.
the
It needs
thing, do you
commas.
have to say, so here's the question, do you have to say public, private, or nonprofit? It's all of them. So why don't you just say any individual or organization that applies to the board? Because that solves the problem easily.
Okay. Others?
This is Millie. What about the notion that board members are appointed?
Where does that come into this? I'm curious.
Okay, so I'm just trying to, you were noting whether it's private or, just looking for a general topic, a universal topic to characterize the board members. Is that what you're discussing?
No, it's whether it's a course provider means any individual or organization that applies to the board for approval.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So the suggestion from Gail is that we strike that course provider. That definition should read as follows. Course provider means any individual or organization that applies to the board for approval, and just strike the parenthetical information. Gail, is that what you're saying, that we don't need?
Yes, I don't think it's needed because you covered everything, public, private, and nonprofit. I mean, they're all covered.
When you say
Anybody.
individual,
Or
when you say
right.
individual or organization, is that right?
Yeah.
Comments? Okay. We can, revisit this in the next, okay. I'll strike that. What I was looking to do was just to make it simpler, to use plain language. Okay. So now we're at before awarding.
Right.
And so, Gail, you had a correction there.
Yeah, it's because you can't say before awarding continuing ed credit, which means the board would do that. The course provider must certify that all attendance requirements have been met. Well, you can't say that because they haven't been met yet because we haven't awarded credit, so the course hasn't happened.
Okay, so how should that
I don't have an easy answer to that without really changing it. But you could say, but what you're trying to say, before awarding continuing education credit, the course provider must demonstrate that all attendance requirements will be met.
Okay, okay. Before awarding continuing education credit, the course provider, there's a double, that's a typo there, I got that. Before awarding continuing education credit, the course provider must.
No, say certify.
I'm sorry.
That's fine. Certify is fine. I'm sorry. I said demonstrate, but certify is okay.
Okay.
All attendance requirements will be met.
But why is it just attendance requirements? I'm looking at the DEP course definition, and can we say that the course meets the requirements of 309 CMR 3.09?
I'm okay with that. I mean,
it's all requirements, not just attendance requirements.
I thought of that too, so I'm okay with that.
Okay, so Deb, would you repeat that, please? Before
awarding continuing education credits, the course provider must meet the requirements of 309 CMR 3.09?
No, I think it says
Must,
must certify that. You have to say must
yeah,
certify that all requirements will be met.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
that all attendance requirements
No, no,
will
No,
be.
I'm not sure why attendance is in there because isn't it all the requirements? It's that, you know,
Uh, a-
yes.
actually, going back to the original um, definition, uh, let's see.
well, I now I understand because it's saying before awarding the credits to the LSP.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an awkward place to have this
I think you're right.
Definition.
I think you're right. It doesn't, that part of it doesn't belong there. It belongs someplace else.
because it's saying before awarding continuing education credits to the LSP, the
Yeah,
course
this is
provider
just
must
a
certify.
yeah, I think here's the thing. This is just a definitions place. Somewhere when we
Mm-hmm.
talk about awarding credit or whatever, that's where that language goes. This is just a definition of a course provider.
Okay, so you think we can strike that? Is that what you're
Move
saying?
it, no, move it to someplace else if it isn't already there someplace else. But this is just definitions, and that doesn't have a place in definitions.
Okay. Other comments about this? All right, I'll move it to somewhere where I think it's more appropriate, and if not, we can move it again. All right.
Yeah.
So move to course provider. What the course
Well,
provider has to do.
you know what? It
So that
may, Beverly, it may also be moved to where we talk about attendance. One or the other.
for attendance. Okay, I got it. Okay, very good. I'll tweak that. The next thing that I mean, you'll see the formatting. I'm trying to get the formatting in as we go, but the next red line strikeout
Actually, Beverly,
is
before you get to the next red line, in-person course, it's already noted as somebody questioned underlined. I believe it needs to be underlined, in-person course.
yep. Got it. Yep, I have that. I will do that. So again, moving along, under regulatory, I added what you see there highlighted in red. And I just need you to let me know whether or not that's okay.
Right, I gotta find it.
Yeah, it's the definition of regulatory.
Wait, okay, hold on. What number is that? Does that have a number where there's a list of numbers, or is it before that?
No, it's after it's
Fill in the
it's in the
definitions.
yes, it's in 1.0 definitions, and it's just regulatory under licensee and LSP under in person.
Hold on, because I'm not finding it. I found a bunch of yellow before I found it, so that's why I'm.
Okay, you know where you made the correction about
Yep,
underlining in person. So
yep.
you move
Oh, I
down and
found it.
license.
Yep. I see it. Yeah, that was okay. I think that was okay.
All right, others comments on regulatory. Is that okay? Okay. Thank you. The next section, you guys had asked that I move the language if a course is not called a DEP course and it's set off to the side in the comment section. That was a change that was requested at the October meeting. Okay, can I ask folks to move to credit minimum?
Credit.
At section 3A.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so credit minimums I changed to, 36, but shall include not fewer than, and I'm asking that should be 9
Yes.
DEP courses, 9 credits. Okay,
That's correct.
thank you. Under credit minimums, because I changed it elsewhere in the document.
Yeah,
but,
below.
Yep, in the chart. All right, so I will change it to 9 Mass DEP because we've decided unofficially, but officially that the minimums are 36 continuing education credits reduced from 48 and 12 DEP, 9 DEP credits reduced from 12. So I'll make that change. Other comments before we move on? Questions? All right. Yes, and so I will make that official in the chart below, 9 credits. And then under section 5 there, I've made some changes. Are those okay?
I think you just need an as after credits.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah. Yes, that would solve my problem because I didn't know why it. I thought there was nothing wrong with this. The question about the singular versus the plural, but that would, if you say as, it solves it.
Okay, thank you.
And I think that sentence that was in the definition, that's already covered here under number 5. So I think you could just remove that altogether. Under course, the
which one?
section under course provider we were talking about.
That before business?
Yeah, it's
Jamie,
already
is that
there, you're
what
saying?
I'm saying the attendance requirement is right here under general course requirements. So we can just remove that.
The other one, right?
No, you remove it under up above where we said it didn't belong. That's where it gets removed.
Right.
The one you said you would move.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Remove. Not move. Remove. I got it. All right. Thank you. Okay. We're now at paragraph subpart 6, and all I did was change course provider. Was there a comment? I'm sorry. No? Okay, can we take a look, please, at under section 6? Gail and I differ on this, but disagreement is good. It's healthy. That IE I prefer to write it out as opposed to having a parenthetical expression, parenthetical there.
I don't see
Any
how you
ideas?
can avoid it, Beverly. The reason is because if you tried to put that in with commas or anything else, you still have to have an IE. You have to explain it. That's the difference. What you're doing is giving a definition of continuing education courses, right? That's what ES means. And so
Yeah.
basically you're stuck with putting it in parentheses because it's a parenthetical expression. But even if you set it off by commas, it would look weirder and you'd still have to say IE.
Yeah. Oh, okay. but courses already commenced is kind of poorly worded.
Oh, that I,
If
that,
something is,
that I'm okay with changing.
if something is commenced, you know, we're also looking at language and how we can simplify it again. And if something is commenced, that means it has begun. It doesn't need the modifier already.
So you know what? Why don't we take out the already commenced and just say completed by the time the board does it? I mean, how many times are we going to be in a board meeting where a course is going on?
Okay, so.
You know when? You know when it would? It would be if it were a college course.
Yeah. Okay. Well, give me a little more direction, can you, on what do you how it should be worded there?
Why not just get rid of already?
Okay, that's good, Jamie. Already, that's got to go.
Actually, that works perfectly.
Okay, so a request for a retroactive approval of continuing education courses, excuse me, open paren, i.e. courses commenced or completed by the time the board meets to review the request for their approval.
Yep.
That's okay.
Yeah. Certainly
If
sounds
the
better.
requirements, I don't think so, but are disfavored, but may be approved. I just think it's kind of confusing. Okay. All right.
Well, why don't, here's the thing. Do you really need to explain to people what retroactive approval means? I mean, if you don't feel you have to, you can take out the whole parenthetical expression. But if people don't understand what retroactive approval means, you have to keep it in so people know what that means. And I think you need to know what that means.
I agree with you, Gail. People need, continuing ed providers need to know what retroactive approval is, because we get this very often. Not very often, but it pops up at almost every board meeting in terms of continuing education. So, it unquestionably has to be there. Some form of definition.
Right.
All right. I don't want to hold us up. I want us to move forward, and so I'll see if I can make it read a little better, and if not, we can go right back to the way it is.
Yeah.
So I'll tweak that for next meeting. You can look at my track changes there on the side, okay. So I specifically asked everybody to pay attention to the highlighted section 7, A and B here, and give me your feedback on that, please.
So for 7, I think we've got the requirements backwards for online courses and webinars. It's webinars.
Okay, hold on. Okay. All right, Jamie, go ahead now.
It's webinars that will require the polling questions, and online courses that require the assessment of learning. So just other way around.
Okay, and online is assessment. Okay.
Well, and there's another thing about the way it's worded. It says requests for course approval must include polling questions. And it isn't, and no matter what it is, whether we change it to the other one, then the request doesn't require it. It is required for approval.
Okay, so
let me see if I change. I think I have some wording. Hold on.
Thank you.
Actually, live on minutes. I think it has to do, basically it's the using words that like live webinars require and online on demand courses require. You can just put it in more direct terms.
Okay, so
Because it's not the
online request
requests.
for, okay,
It's
you
not
want,
requests.
so, okay, so, number 7, and, I,
Just say,
I'm
how about just say
I'm,
online courses must include?
Right. Online courses require, I just had it to keep the line. I think live webinars require periodic polling questions, online on demand. And I think we need, however we're doing that, but online on demand courses, because you have to distinguish the not live part, require assessments of learning. It was very direct.
okay, so live.
And then finish the rest of whatever you wrote about them.
Okay, so online requires, live webinar requires, and then make the switch that Jamie discussed earlier, right?
Yep.
All right, can I wanted to ask, in looking, pardon me, at these numbers, if online is 7, it seems to me that live webinar should be 8.
I think that would be better.
It's because live webinar, unless live webinar is a subset of online courses.
Well,
But
they
I
are.
think in
There's 2
order
types
to,
of online courses. It is a subset because there's online live and there's online on demand.
online. All right, so how do you want me to parse that out, guys? In terms
I
of
agree.
online.
They should be their own numbers.
Okay, so online is number 7, and live webinar should be number 8, and
Actually,
under
Beverly,
that, yes.
it might make sense to reverse the order because live webinars are the more important version of that. Live webinars are the, just in terms of, weird, but.
Okay, so live webinar is number, and please everybody else chime in. Live webinar is number 7, and online will become number 8, and then underneath that, a statement that the course provider should be A, any other information should be B, and then there should be the C.
Yeah, and I wanted to make, there's one more comment about the language, Beverly, in the paragraph that's about the live webinar request for approval one. I mean, changing it so it isn't live webinar request for approval must include. It's not. It's that live webinars must include. The approval doesn't matter.
Where are you, Gail?
It's same both 7 and 8. It's basically it isn't a request that must contain it. It's the course must contain the online webinar or on demand, whatever, live webinar, whatever we're wording, must include. It isn't the request that must include it. It's the course that must include it as part of what they're doing. And then in the one that
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it just, the one that talks about the live webinar one, it says at the end of, at the end of instruction, establishes a passing, the way it's worded, it says that the request for approval must include blah, blah, blah at the end of instruction, establishes a passing score. That grammatically, that's not, doesn't make sense.
Okay.
So it just needs, you have to have it in separate, and so it's wording it so that it actually fits, and maybe make it in its own sentence.
Okay.
And as the, it was as simple as the assessment of learning, a passing score must be something, or for the assessment of learning must be established.
Yep,
Passing score must be established for the assessment of learning. That's it.
Okay.
But you can play with it to make it make sense.
This is Debbie. I have one comment. Just going back to our different definitions, we don't have, if I might not be right on this, but I don't think we have online anymore. It's just on demand and live webinar.
That's what
Oh,
I think.
seven.
But,
Should be on demand.
So number
Yes.
7, Deb, you're saying should be on demand?
Yeah, because I think we eliminated online
Okay,
in the definitions.
all right, on demand. It's on the attendance cert forms though. Online is on the attendance cert forms as a distinction between live webinar, but so we'll just have to start changing the language. Okay. All right. So we are at 12:32. Let's see where we are in this section. Can we just finish, please, the next 2 highlighted sections here, which are the Jill, did you have a comment? You were muffled.
Yeah, I just wanted to say B seems out of place. Somehow that whole thing doesn't make sense with the 7A and 7B. I'm not sure. I think that you might want to revisit that because we made the live, whatever the online and live separate things, 7 and 8. So then B seems completely out of place because there's no A, and it should be a separate number, it seems.
I agree. Just get rid of B and just add it as a separate sentence at the end of the online course request, because that's where we're looking for a passing score, right? There's no
Yes.
passing score for
Yes.
Yeah.
No, college courses are different.
Yeah, but we're
College
specifically
courses have their own requirement. College courses have their own requirement for passing. I think it
I know.
belongs someplace else, is what I think.
This is in context of the online on-demand course.
Then we
Right.
do need the A and B.
What's A?
In other words, if
I
you're
get what
changing
you're
A to 8, then you need and you're talking about online college courses, then you need to do something about that.
Well,
You see?
what Jamie, and you correct me if I'm misspeaking, but what Jamie is saying is that, pardon me, there's a 7, there's an 8. He's saying fold B into a statement that the course provider will certify, fold that into online.
Correct. That's
the
exactly
online, the online definition, and that'll eliminate that A-B issue. I understand what you're saying, Gail. You can't have a without a B and vice versa. So, but what Jamie says fixes that problem, because I'm folding number 8 into number 7.
No,
It'll
I
be
thought.
easier. Oh, go ahead.
I just was going to say, one, I think the college courses, if we're talking about online college courses, then they should be put together and say online college courses, something like that, if that's what we're talking about here. But in any case, we just changed A and B because technically it should be A, B, and C if you're talking about only online courses. So I think this needs a little bit more work to clarify what you mean by that, because the college courses is someplace else where it requires completing the course and achieving a passing score. For the online one, this may be what we're saying, is that this is for online only in this
Yeah, I
location.
don't think it means, I didn't think it meant college courses here.
It doesn't mean college. This is solely, this section is fleshing out, trying to catch up to what we've been doing for the past year during COVID. We're trying to catch up to and further refine the definitions of webinar as opposed to on demand. And we did say that there had to be a passing score for the assessment of learning.
Right, but we didn't say what it was specified to be in the question in the section above. But this one you added, I think, for college courses, when in fact college courses are in their own separate category, whether on demand or not, I would think.
Okay.
I think it's
All right.
confusing
Well,
because I think it appears twice, unless this means online college courses.
Okay. I will work with what you, the suggestions I've been given, and I'll turn out another draft.
Could I make one more quick suggestion for number
course.
7, where it says online request for course approval? That seems to suggest that this is just for people going through the internet to make a request as a part of this process, as opposed to requests for approval of online courses. Do you know what I'm saying? Is it appropriate to
Yes.
change the order of those words?
Absolutely.
I
This is
think-
Greg. Yes, I agree with that. And Beverly, I'm having technical issues here, but I have edits like that Patrick just mentioned, and I'll send those to you separately because I can't even look at them where I'm sitting right now.
I thought we talked about getting rid of the whole
Right,
request language. You're just saying the
Yeah.
courses require, right?
Right.
Instead of saying
We
anything
did.
about the request. Yeah.
We did. We said it's on demand, and we did get rid of requests. Okay, so Patrick, can you repeat for me what you just said so that I can try and get it down and see if I can actually make it breathe life into it?
Maybe it would go something like approval for on-demand courses
Mm-hmm.
must include polling questions, or maybe I don't have that quite right because you still need a request, but sorry, I'm not sure now.
I think
Okay,
that,
okay.
Patrick, I think what Jamie just said is that we had just changed it so that it doesn't have requests in there at all, and it just says the online course require. So you take out that whole request issue.
Okay.
All right, well,
Okay.
let me, it's kind of hard to theorize what it would look like and sound like and how it will read without having it before you. So let me make the changes that you have requested, and we'll take another look at it, because this is, the newest portion of the regs. We're, again, trying to catch up to 2021. So I'll do that. And
Okay.
I think,
Beverly, before you stop, why don't we just get C and D done because they're simple? I think we can approve those pretty easily.
okay. Yep, that was what I was asking. So C and D are approved.
Well, ask everybody else, but I thought they were okay.
Okay. Comments from others about C and D? I mean, I think I only added syllabus and.
Yeah, looks good to me.
Seems fine.
All right. Thank you. C and D are okay. So I'll make that notation. All right, thank you very much. I'll make these corrections, additions, and maybe next session we'll get through 309 at last. All right, I am adjourning. Please note that this meeting was recorded, and we are adjourning at 12:40.
Can I begin? Beverly?
Absolutely. Yes.
Calling the continuing ed committee meeting to order, November 9th, 12:41. For the roll call, I have Greg, Deb, Gail, Jamie, Kirk, Kathy, Millie, Patrick. Anyone else? And Chris, can you let us know who's on from the public?
On from the public is Allison Elliott, Deidre Winterburn, James DeCoulis, Christy Lefebvre, Lori McCarthy, Saskia Oosting, and Wendy Rundle.
Great, thank you. Any update on the virtual draft meeting minutes?
You know what? I am waiting for Mass DEP assistance. So, no, I don't have an update for that right now. I've asked for help. Yeah.
So there's 3 new course approval requests and 2 course reapproval requests.
Hopefully, I'm sorry, David, hopefully everyone got the revised agenda for the continuing ed meeting.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
So the first request is from the LSPA PFAS Initiatives of Waste Management, 1.5 technical credits. Looking for approval as a live webinar and on demand. I make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Oh,
Any
I'm
discussion?
sorry, yes, I had a question about it being on demand. I thought it was a live webinar.
No, they included their typical language to also have it turned into an on-demand course and have an assessment of learning.
Okay, thank you.
It's on the bottom of the second page.
Good. Thank you, David.
You're welcome. Any discussion from the board or public? So a yes is approving. Greg,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Millie,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So that's approved. The second one is NGA conference in person in December. They're looking for 6 technical credits. It's basically 3 hours per day. I make a motion to approve it as a conference, half-hour credit for every hour attended.
Second.
Well, did you check some of the things that they're putting in there now?
Yep.
And you're okay with the things like nitrate and some of those other things as applicable?
Yeah, I mean,
That's
I
fine.
think there was one on karst geology, which, you know, we don't, so, but it's fine.
Surprisingly, there is some elements that might occur in the western part of the state that
There you go.
people might learn from. But no, I was thinking of the nitrate because it doesn't apply to what an LSP does. That was my only concern.
Well, I decided where it's a conference and they're only getting a half CEU per hour. I wasn't gonna pick and choose as much.
But they asked for 6 and we're giving them 3. Is that what you're saying?
It's a conference in person. That's similar to the UMass, the EHS.
The only question I had is, it looks like it's 2 days and then the third day, the 16th. I wasn't sure about about the credits. It's,
I saw the 6 hours of credits across 2 days. And it is called,
Sorry, go ahead.
and it is called a conference.
But the question is, there were lots of other things that were offered at that time. Are we saying that they have to take these? It has to be that they attended these sessions, because that's what we said last time. We said that a lot of these don't apply. So they came back and said, well, here's the ones we think do apply. And so we can give 6 credits or whatever for if they attend these.
no, that's a different conference.
That's
Oh,
a
I'm
difference.
sorry. I pulled up the wrong thing.
That's a different
Yeah,
conference.
it's a little confusing because it's the same provider, but that's the reapply one that we're going to discuss. The reapproval.
Okay. Then
This
I'm good.
is
Whatever
one
you
that we
say.
haven't seen before.
Yep, then I'm good.
Okay, any other discussion from the public or board? So yes is approving it as a half credit for every hour up to 6 hours conference. Greg,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes,
Jamie,
Yes.
Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Millie,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. The third one is an analytical webinar and on-demand 1 hour course, hydrocarbon forensics analytical services. This was already given in June, so they're looking for approval for it as the webinar. They did have polling questions during the webinar. And for the on-demand, although it's not in what they submitted, they do have 10 questions to provide for assessment of learning. So I make a motion to approve it as both a webinar and an on-demand with the assumption that they're going to have the 10 questions as an assessment of learning.
I will
And
second that.
I just want to make a comment here that this course was timely submitted by Alpha Analytical, and Sarah Morrissey did not include it on the actual submission to me. So that's why it's appearing on the November agenda. But it was received well ahead of the June 15th date.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
David, can I just make the suggestion that instead of an assumption, just make it that they will have to do that? That the on-demand will need to do that instead of an assumption?
Sure. Hopefully I stated it that way, but yes, the on-demand portion will have the 10 questions for the assessment of learning. That's part of the approval. Any other discussion from the board or public? A yes is approving it. Greg,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes,
Jamie,
Yes.
Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Millie,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. There's 2 course reapproval requests. I'm not sure why Enviro Workshops submitted this. I think it was already approved. I think the change was that it was going from 4. It was going from 4 credits to 3.75, and they had 1 instructor change.
Yes, that is why, David. You're right. They change. They have to come back. It's a substantive change under the regs for them to change instructors. So that's why it was resubmitted.
Motion
So
to
now
approve.
we're going to approve it for the 3.75.
Yeah. This would get an A designation.
I make a motion to approve.
second.
Any other discussions from the public or board? A yes is approving. Greg,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes,
Jamie,
Yes.
Kirk,
Yeah.
Kathy,
Yes.
Millie,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. The other course reapproval request was a live webinar in December, Groundwater Summit. From what they provided, it seems more applicable. And I think we should approve it as a conference. Do other people feel the same?
I'm okay as long as you guys think that monitoring nitrate contamination in aquifers counts for what an LSP would do. That would, I have a couple of questions like that, but
With regards to nitrate, the big issue is water quality, and there is an intersection of water 21E and wastewater to bring about health of ponds. And
Oh, good.
so
Then that's good.
whether it's, there's a lot of work that's currently taking place on Cape Cod, nitrogen, nitrates, and also phosphates for lakes. So there is a nexus there.
It is also something that we test for when you're conducting bioremediation.
Yes.
Well, I think this is
So,
more than natural sources, but
So I make a
otherwise,
motion
I'm
to.
fine. I'm fine.
I make a motion to approve it as a conference, 8 hours, half CEU for every hour attended.
Second.
So is it 7.66 credits, or are we rounding up?
I rounded up.
Okay.
As opposed to running down.
And what did you say, David? I'm sorry, you rounded it
I
up
mean-
to,
Well, I mean, can we do a fraction like that?
Well, it'd be 3.75, sort of. We could do it like that because you'd round down because it's closer to 7.5 than it is to
Okay,
8.
so I meant it to be 7.75.
But you said a conference, so it's 3.75, isn't that?
Oh, I was just giving the total hours
Yeah.
available,
It's
yes.
a two-day conference, so it would be.
okay. I'm sorry, you're muffled. I didn't get that.
It's a two-day conference, so the total for the 2 days would be either 7.66 or 8 or 7.5.
But it isn't, but these are the only ones we said applied. If you remember, we made a distinction and said, these are the only ones that you can't attend the whole conference. You have to, these are the ones that will count.
Right. Which is why it's, hence the reapproval request.
Right. So it would be halftime for these lectures.
Exactly.
So it would end up being
Okay.
3.75 or 3.8 credits.
Okay, so is that for the total, for how do you want me to word the attendance cert form? That's what I'm asking.
What did you say, Gail? 3 point?
I think well, if we're going to say it's if it's 7.5, then it would be 3.75 hours of credit. And if you want to just divide it in half for the conference, if you attended these, it's here. Let's do it this way, because the way they'll keep track is probably by lecture. So basically, it would be half an hour per 1 hour lecture.
Okay, so 1/2 hour of credit.
Don't we normally list just the total hours that are available, regardless of if it's a half CEU or not?
No, I think we say it's approved as a conference, which is 2 for 1, but you have to attend these. The point was, we said you then have to attend all of them.
We got that, yeah. So they have to attend the courses that are proposed.
A maximum, it would be a maximum, because they don't have to attend all of these. They could attend 2 of these and get 1 credit.
I don't care what the math is.
So what I'm saying is it's 2 for 1 credit for these courses, for these lectures.
We know that. Yep, we know
so
that.
Just say, so don't we word it as 2 for 1? So it would be 3.75 credits. Basically, it's 3.75 or 3 point.
Do we need to get into the total and just say, can we just say it's 1/2 hour per hour attended of these courses? That's it.
I think we should. I think that's the way to word it. It's the easiest way, I think.
Any other
So
discussion?
I'm sorry, so 1/2 hour of credit for every hour of attendance. Is that like the soils conference?
Correct.
Is that right?
Of the courses that were presented in the application as part of this conference.
Okay.
And the
of the
request, yep.
courses that were part of the reapplication, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, got it.
Any other discussion from the board or public? A yes is approving. Greg,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Millie,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That's it. The next meeting will be January 11th, 2022. I'm ending the meeting at 12:57.
Okay. All right, Jamie, just give me a second and I'll be ready, or Kurt, whoever's conducting. The agenda for professional conduct has a typographical error. It's mislabeled virtual continuing education meeting agenda, and it should be professional conduct. And I'm all set.
Okay, call to order the professional conduct committee meeting at 12:58. In terms of the minutes, I assume it's the same story. You're waiting for help from DEP, correct?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I am. And with respect to the courses, I have to apologize. I have not been able to do anything with the courses. I'm sorry, not with the courses, with the prosecutions. I am waiting for assistance from Mass DEP on this. So I also have a report on going back into the office, which I think is going to enable me to get some more work done, or some work done on the prosecutions. Unfortunately, that has been the thing that I have neglected to work on. I just haven't been able to find the time. So I'm working with the commissioner to get someone in to help me with the prosecutions. So I'll have a better report for January.
Okay, so are you saying you don't have any updates on any of the dockets?
I don't, that's right. I don't have any updates on the dockets for this month.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And there's no new business?
No, there's no new business.
All right, well, that was a short meeting then. Next one will be in
Yeah.
January.
Yeah. I mean, the only
Good.
thing I do have to say that I'm still looking for the redaction software. All our files were moved. And I don't even know where the redaction software on the computer is. So the prosecutions, unfortunately, have been the thing that I have not been able to keep up with. But again, I've asked for help from the EDEP. I'm sorry, not EDEP, from Mass DEP. So if you guys will be patient until January, I better.
All right, well, then I guess we should just move on to the board meeting. We'll adjourn at 1:01.
Can I make a request that people mute themselves? I'm hearing a lot of paper shuffling and background noise. Thank you.
Thank you and good afternoon. I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the virtual board meeting for the hazardous waste site cleanup professionals. Begin calling this meeting to order at 1:02 p.m. I'd like to remind everyone that the meeting is being recorded. So with regards to announcements, Beverly, I wasn't sure if you wanted to announce that Paul Locke has been appointed as acting Deputy Commissioner of Mass DEP. And in that case, Paul Locke has been appointed as the acting Deputy Commissioner of Mass DEP, and Elizabeth Callahan has been appointed as the acting Assistant Commissioner for the Bureau of Wayside Cleanup until Stephanie Cooper returns to Mass DEP. She has been asked to serve as acting Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Conservation and Recreation. That will take place, acting role through January. And so I just wanted to at least let you know in connection with the board and the Mass DEP site cleanup. That's an organizational chart that will take place between now and the end of the year. Any other announcements from the board members or the public? Okay, hearing none. Let's move on to agenda. Additions, deletions, or other changes to the draft agenda so we can adopt it. I only have one addition, and maybe this is something that is quickly captured in item 5B. I'd like to offer that the ARP 321 is comprised by Mr. Patrick Harron, Ms. Kathy Campbell, and myself, Millie Garcia Serrano. So I just wanted to at least have that be noted on the actual agenda that we're working with today. Any other comments? Hearing none, we're going to move on to decisions with regards to the licensing of the applicants. And today we need to vote on 2 renewal dockets. The first renewal docket consists of 16 LSPs that have completed their requirements for renewal by October 30, 2021. And their license now has a renewal date of October 30, 2024. Does anyone have any questions or comments before we move forward with taking action on this docket?
Motion to approve renewal docket number 1.
Second.
Second, great. So when I call your name, please say yes. Greg?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Kirk?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Millie is a yes. Patrick?
Yes.
And David?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries to approve docket number 1. Docket number 2 consists of 4 LSPs whose license had a renewal date of July 30, 2021, and now have a new renewal date of July 30, 2024.
Hello?
I do have a,
Hello.
yes.
I'm sorry, I was disconnected, and I'm just logging back on. Millie, where are you?
Sure. So we're in the process of discussing docket number 2, which consists of 4 LSPs. And there's the screen should reflect that. It's the renewal docket number 2 with the renewal date of July 30 and the new renewal date.
Well, just hold on one second. Let me catch up to you again. I don't know what my phone dropped the call. So, all right. I'm with you, Millie. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Beverly. I did have a question on this docket, and I think it's more like for clarification. Often dockets will have a little bit more information underneath the renewal dates and the new renewal dates. And my question for you is whether these 4 LSPs have completed all the requirements to move forward with a new renewal date of July 30, 2024.
For docket number 2?
Yes.
Yes, they have.
Okay, thank you.
It's, I think it's completed the requirements for the 90-day extension. If I
Right.
remember from last meeting.
Yeah,
Right.
you know, often we'll have some information underneath akin to docket number 1, gives you a little bit more detail. I just didn't see it here, so I just wanted that clarified before we actually move forward with.
Okay, so you voted on renewal docket number 1?
Yes, we did, Beverly. So
Okay, and
renewal-
what was that vote, please?
yes, so basically the motion carried to approve docket number 1 for all of the 16 LSPs
Thank you.
that have in fact completed all the requirements. So Chris, I don't know if you mind just moving. Yeah, thank you. There you go. So see how docket number 1 specifies that all 16 LSPs have completed all the requirements for renewal. And I just was looking for a little bit more information on docket number 2.
Okay, and the information was, have they completed their requirements? And my answer was yes.
Okay, so with that in mind, I move to approve docket number 2 as recorded, and I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Thank you. So please say yes when I call your name. Greg? Hello, Greg?
Sorry, yes.
Thank you. Deb?
Yes.
Deb is a yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Gail?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Kirk?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Millie's a yes. Patrick?
Yes.
Thank you. And David?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries to approve docket number 2 as recorded. Okay, with that, I'd like to move forward with item 5B, which is application renewal panels. And this is for ARP number 320 and 321. So Beverly, if you could kindly please provide us with an update on those 2 ARPs, and also as it pertains to any board members that are part of the ARP, if you wish to weigh in and comment, you're more than welcome to.
ARP 320 met and approved Mr. Andrew Wadden's reapplication, and the panel members also approved Peter Zawad, and I'm sure I'm mangling the name with apologies. His application was also approved. The panel members were Patrick Heron, David Austin, and Gail Batchelder. Excuse me, Dr. Batchelder abstained from voting to approve Mr. Wadden's application, and she may want to provide some comments, but Mr. Austin indicated during the October 14th, 2021 conference that Mr. Wadden's reapplication, he noted that Mr. Wadden became an LSRP in 2015 in New Jersey, and there was a discussion, pardon me, about whether or not what he did was managed field work as opposed to, pardon me, individual tasks. I think Dr. Batchelder had a question, abstained from voting because of the issue of whether or not Mr. Wadden was a principal decision maker. That was all I had, unless the panel members want to comment on Mr. Wadden. I'll move to Mr. Wadzika. Mr. Wadzika was according to Mr. Austin, clearly qualified. He had good references. He had good project experience. Mr. Heron indicated that his references were strong and he was well positioned to take the LSP exam, that he had experience in a variety of roles that transitioned him up to principal decision maker. So for both applicants on panel 320, they were approved. On application, ARP 321, Ronald Adams. Mr. Adams' application was approved. The panel members, Millie Garcia Serrano, Patrick Heron, and Kathy Campbell, felt that he was qualified. Ms. Campbell thought that his descriptions could have been more clearly written, but Mr. Heron added that he had clearly overseen different methods and different remedial actions, risk assessment. He had managed others and evaluated hundreds of projects, and his references supported his request to sit for the exam. So those, all three applicants were approved.
Yes, indeed. So I am also again in agreement with advancing Mr. Ronald Adams, affirmatively supporting his moving forward. He did have some very good experience also in the radionuclides area, which is a specialty subject matter expertise and often comes up if LSPs are contending with decommissioning power plants. So with that, I move to adopt the recommendations from ARP 320 and 321. If I could hear a second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say yes when I call your name. Greg?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Kirk?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Millie is a yes. Patrick?
Yes.
And David?
Yes.
Thank you to all the board members for supporting this, and also to Beverly. And with that, motion carries to adopt the recommendations of ARP 320 and 321. I'd like to move forward with the assignment of ARP number 322. Beverly, if you could kindly please proceed with requesting and assigning board members to this ARP.
I don't assign them, they volunteer. I want to be clear about that. So who's going to volunteer to sit on this two-member panel? Michael Horton and Mr. McAndrews.
This is Patrick. I'm happy to do so.
Thank you, Patrick.
Greg will help on this.
Thank you, Mr. McBride.
And Debbie will also.
Thank you, Ms. Listernick. I do want to note that Mr. Horton is a reapplication. He applied first in August of 2016, and I will make sure that the panel members get both files. Thank you very much for volunteering, guys.
Ditto, thank you for volunteering. So Beverly, does that also cover Kevin McAndrews? That's a combo package?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so Beverly, if you could provide us with an update on the topics listed under 6, it's 6A, B, and C. This is other licensing related matters.
Yeah. The first order of business under other licensing matters is the LSP petition for waiver, and that is a petition for waiver from Michael G. Girioni. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name. Everyone here under the petition for waiver and annual fees received a link to attend the meeting. I just want to note that for the record. They were specifically invited because they had business before the board today. So this letter from Mr. Girioni, forgive me, was dated October 21st, 2021, and I'm open to the board discussing the matter.
Well, the pandemic is not a compelling reason not to have your CEUs, and consistent with other decisions, I don't think it should be granted.
I would add that the petitioner doesn't specify any reason for good cause for not getting the credits.
Exactly.
Any other comments by other board members? If none, do I have a motion on the floor to act on this request?
This is McBride. I move to deny the request of the petitioner.
I'll second it.
So the motion on the floor is to deny the request. Please say yes if you agree by way of when I call your name during the roll call. Greg?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Kirk?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Millie is a yes. Patrick?
Yes?
And David?
Yes.
Motion carries. This request is denied. And so I trust the LSP will find a path forward to remedy. So that's with Michael Girioni. Beverly, do we have another petition on the docket here?
No, the subsequent ones come under unpaid annual fees that I'll get to those. So there are a total, so that petition for waiver under 6A was denied, and I'll notify the LSP that his petition was denied. There are a total of 453 LSPs as of last Friday. There are now only 2 LSPs on inactive status. Maria Pinode decided not to renew her license. Pardon me. And now we have reached number 7 on the board meeting agenda. And that has to do with unpaid annual fees. So with respect to the unpaid annual fees, there were, just give me a second here, I apologize. There were not a total of 9 LSPs who failed to, pardon me, who failed to pay their annual fee. And I wanted to give a report on each of them because out of, pardon me, the 9, I phoned everyone. And I'm sorry, you're just gonna have to give me a second here. A lot of shuffling of paper, Deb, sorry. Okay. Thank you for your patience. There were a total of 9 unpaid annual fees. Of the 9, Kevin Scully, so I called each one individually because the annual fee was due close of business March 1st, 2021. Bills were mailed in late December, early January 2020, 2021. Out of the 9, Kevin Scully informed me that he had retired. Don Maggioli informed me that he had retired. Anthony Rico informed me that he had retired. A 4th LSP, Richard Quartermain, never responded. I've called every number that we have for him. I looked for him on the internet. I've not been able to get a response from him. In dealing with the other 4 people on the list, you have before you a petition from Ms. Oosting, who is also on the line and may want to comment, but you have her submission before you.
Yes, so the submission was sent out to all the board members, and basically there are 5 points that Ms. Saskia Oosting makes noted, and therefore, based on those 5 points, she's respectfully requesting that her license be reinstated without the need to file a limited application. So Beverly, would you mind providing some comment based on the rules of engagement predicated on, just the arguments that Ms. Oosting has presented forth, or any comments from the board members?
Well, I cited the regs. So what I was asking the board to do was take a look at the reg, and Ms. Oosting can speak for herself if she has a comment, but beyond what she has submitted. But what I can say from the administrative perspective is that Ms. Oosting changed positions. She left GEI, and she didn't change her address with the board. And all of this is in her petition here. But I don't know what to say. If you don't change your address, we don't know to come looking for you. So obviously the invoice went to GEI, which was the last known address. GEI, according to Ms. Oosting, and this is the only statement I'm going to make that she made to me, is that GEI did not forward the invoice to her. But she left GEI and went to Eversource in 2020.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I believe that Ms. Oosting is attending today's virtual meeting, so I don't know if she wants to offer any comments before for consideration by the board, and then we will act on this request. So Chris, let us know if there's anything. If not,
So far, nothing.
Okay, great. Thank you for feedback. Members of the board, any comments?
She just said I am muted. I'm just gonna say, yeah, nobody can actually talk, but you can type in whatever you need to say, and I will relay it to the board. So I'm assuming she will type in whatever she needs to
Okay,
say,
we'll
and I
give her a
can
few
relay
minutes.
it to I'll relay it to you guys.
Okay.
So she
So-
just said, I have stated my information in the letter. I respectfully ask the board to grant my request.
Thank you. So any board members
we're-
comments on this request?
So we're saying the timeframes don't apply because it was impossible to contact her and she wasn't contacted until October, which was past all the timeframes to fix the situation.
Well, what I'm saying is that the first thing you have to do is notify the LSP board when you change your address. And it's not, Ms. Oosting indicates that her contact information, she changed her contact information on LinkedIn and with the LSPA Association. And she did indicate that to me when I spoke with her. But it's, you know, I don't know what to say to you if you don't change your address with the board. We're the licensing agency. And she, Ms. Oosting also further indicates in her letter that she was told that GEI discarded her mail. I mean, these are things that the board doesn't control.
My only question, Beverly, is when you spoke with the other individuals and you learned about, for example, Mr. Scully retiring, et cetera, there were a few retirees and then some individuals that never responded. Was Ms. Oosting's number correct at the time that you engaged with all of these 9 LSPs that had the unpaid annual fees?
I called her on her cell phone. She had listed her business address with GEI as her primary phone number. So
Okay.
I called every number for all of the 9 LSPs, and I can give you the dates on which those telephone calls took place if you want to know. I don't think it's really necessary,
not
but
necessary.
I do have that information.
Mhm.
But if I don't, well, when I call folks for something like this, I call every number that we have and leave a message at each number. So I reached her at her cell phone number, but her primary contact was GEI. And that was the last known address where we mailed her annual fee. But, you know, you have to take into consideration that Ms. Oosting left GEI in 2020. I believe in May of 2020.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So May of 2020, the invoices didn't go out until 6 months later.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. That's
6 to
helpful.
7 months later. Yeah.
Okay. So board members, if you are don't have any additional questions, I'd like to move forward with
I have a question. So if the other folks that were called at around the same time frame and they ended up retiring, if they weren't in a situation where they were retiring and wanted to continue, they would be in the same situation?
Absolutely. They'd be in the same boat, which is why I make the calls. On the third, when it gets to the third letter, people who have been on the board a long time know that I do call people because it's such a serious penalty. And I cited the regs there for the board to look at both petition for waiver under 212 and the section of 3.06 that revokes an LSP's license. It's a serious consequence. I do understand that. So I do make those calls. And yes, David, to answer your question, the 3 retirees would be in the same boat. And in fact, the person that I did not reach, Mr. Quartermain, his license has been revoked.
And is
Could I
this
just
happening?
ask, I could just make a point that we've talked about this before many times, and I think it's important just to sort of reiterate it for the record that the responsibility is actually not on the board to even try to contact people. The responsibility is on the LSPs to make sure their information is up to date, and that what Beverly does is a courtesy to everyone to help this situation from happening, so that it's still, the responsibility is still on the LSP to meet the regulations by notifying the board. So I think Beverly goes above and beyond what is necessary to try to contact people, and the onus should never be placed on the board to try to get in touch with somebody. I mean, it's nice that we do, and I think that's very admirable, but I think it's important to reiterate the fact that it is not the responsibility of the board to search people out.
I agree.
Ms. Oosting just said, I made a mistake. However, I was not called until after the periods for response were over to avoid revokement.
Yeah, this is Greg. I agree with Gail. I believe that there's personal responsibility, and we're dealing with adult professionals here that some of whom rely on the license for their living, and I think that these kinds of requests, really are not deserving of these waivers or waivers that they're asking for, and I think without any personal animosity, we just need to reject these because people have a responsibility. It is not the board's responsibility to keep track of their what they owe to the board to maintain their license.
Right. The regulations are very clear, and it is the responsibility of any professional to meet their professional obligations by by meeting the regulations. Right. So I think, again, reiterating the fact that Beverly goes above and beyond what is required by regulation, which is nothing on the board's part to track people down.
Motion to deny the waiver.
Second. Please say yes when I call your name. Greg,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy, Kathy Campbell.
Yep, there I am. Yes.
Thank you. Millie is a yes. Patrick
Yes.
and David.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion to deny the request.
Okay, there are, I'm treating these individually because they're obviously individual cases. The next petition or response regarding non-payment of his annual fees was from Mr. DeCoulis. And I just wanted to state, and Mr. Coulis is also on the line, is also participating. I did, again, send each LSP in this predicament a link to the meeting so that they could attend. But in Mr. DeCoulis's third paragraph, he says that I called him. I did call him. I did not ask if he had paid. I called to tell him that we had no record of his payment. And it wasn't that I sent the notice on October 26th after talking to him, because Mr. DeCoulis had already indicated that he received the green card notifying him. He said when I called him, he was in Central America, and that his office had received the green card. He indicated that he never received it, but the invoice, but it went out with his certificate, and the certificate never came back. I've checked with the program coordinator. Now, I want to be clear about this thing with Mr. DeCoulis, because I just want to give a little of the background, because if you recall, Mr. DeCoulis did not have sufficient credit to renew his license, and so he appealed the matter to the superior court, seeking a preliminary injunction. So he did not receive the whole matter was stayed until we heard from the court. And once we heard from the court, that's when Mr. DeCoulis's we heard from the court, and then Mr. DeCoulis eventually obtained his continuing education credit. And once he obtained his continuing education credit, he was issued a certificate, and then his invoice for his annual fee was sent along with the certificate. I believe he paid it this past week. We received payment, or last week. I'm sorry, last week.
And that was after the October milestone, Beverly?
Well,
Payment?
I mean, the problem, yes.
Okay.
October, yes, it was last week that we received payment, because Mr. DeCoulis's position, and he will correct me, I'm sure, if I'm misquoting him, but his position is he never received the invoice, so he never paid the fee. But if you recall, there was a court action that stayed everything, so his license remained intact until the court ruled on that preliminary injunction. And once that happened, then he was told he had to obtain the continuing education credits. He did that, and that was when he was billed.
Thank you. That's very helpful, Beverly.
And I do have dates for the preliminary injunction and how that whole process unfolded, which delayed, if you recall, Mr. DeCoulis didn't have enough credits for a 90-day extension. And he also said that we were misreading the governor's executive order with respect to COVID and license fees. All of that was handled by the court and definitively settled. But that was all I had, and you may want to hear from Mr. DeCoulis now.
He just stated, and I never received notice that my license was going to be suspended as the regulation requires. I don't know if there was a first part to that. But that's what Mr. DeCoulis just stated.
So where do things stand where the fee has been paid? What's the current status?
He paid the fee last week. We received payment last week.
So what happens to the license?
Well, we've taken no. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. So basically, let's see. So matter was appealed. Mr. DeCoulis sought preliminary injunction.
Well, let me pull this up. So Mr. DeCoulis did not have sufficient credits to renew his license. He filed a petition for waiver. The petition for waiver was denied. Mr. DeCoulis then appealed the board's ruling denying his petition for waiver to the Superior Court. The whole matter was decided by the Superior Court, and I'm pulling up the exact date for this. And once the court ruled that Mr. DeCoulis was not entitled to a preliminary injunction, that he in fact didn't have enough credits even for the 90-day extension, Mr. DeCoulis went out and obtained the credits and his license was restored. At that time, because he didn't have a valid license, it was just stayed. At that time, he was told to pay his annual fee. And Mr. DeCoulis said he never received that notice to pay his annual fee, but the certificate was never returned to our office.
Mr. DeCoulis just said, can I argue my case verbally? And I answered him that would have to be set up before the meeting because he would have to be invited as a panelist and not as an attendee. And he then stated, I did ask to be heard before the meeting. The petition for waiver and the preliminary injunction are irrelevant. Please consider the point in time when my license became active on May 11th.
I believe that's true. The license became active May 11th, so we're talking about now the annual fee and when that had to be paid. And if it's been paid now, is it just too late because it's beyond the 90 days when you have that leeway to pay the fee? I think that's the issue.
Right.
Debbie, that's how I understand it. And I think that's really the point that the board members need to, if that is correct, and I believe it is, that's the point that we need to deliberate on today.
This is Greg. I have to make my point again about personal responsibility, and apparently license was important to the individual enough to go to court about, and then to not pay attention to paying fees, and if he did not receive the certificate as he claims, then I think he would be contacting the board and asking why it was not sent to him. But having received none of that communication, I don't know quite what to say. With the facts of the facts, and I think we should deny this.
And I just want to support what Greg said, simply because, again, it all gets down to the personal responsibility for knowing. If you've been an LSP for that long, you know you have an annual fee due. And if you haven't seen it, I certainly would be calling. I would expect most people would be calling to find out where it is, so you don't get in this kind of situation, because there are serious consequences for not paying it. So I want to support the general personal responsibility component of this, and knowing the regulations and the consequences and what your responsibilities as an LSP are.
Mr. DeCoulis then stated, I should have received notice under 309 CMR 209. And then he said, my license was paid all of 2020 and stripped halfway through the year. And then he stated, are the regulations no longer important?
I would comment that the license wasn't stripped. He didn't have the credits to maintain the license.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like by way of appealing the matter to Superior Court, there's a stay, so there's a Superior Court component, and then a decision came out of that court, which then lend itself to reinstatement, and now the fee component, which is what we're focusing on at this moment. And the timeline being very important.
Well, right. Well, what, excuse me, and to piggyback on Millie's comments, when the preliminary injunction was denied, and I sent that decision to all the board members, Patrick, I'm sure you don't have it, but I'll forward it just for your information. But what that meant when the decision came down was that Mr. DeCoulis's license lapsed until he obtained the necessary credit. And he came before the board. You reviewed his application for renewal. The board members, and you decided that he had met the requirements, and that was when his license was reinstated. So, I mean, for that period of time, Mr. DeCoulis wasn't able to practice until he obtained the necessary credit, and that was at a board meeting when his license was reinstated. And again,
Mr. DeCoulis just said, what about the notice provisions under 309 CMR 209, 2.09? Can someone please read those?
So I think what we're trying to do is clearly identify the statement of facts and the sequencing of events. And so we probably need to pull up that citation, but again, it boils down to all the arguments and discussions and really opinions from the board members as it pertains to personal responsibility. I am fairly clear with regards to the progression of steps and what took place here. I think Beverly has articulated that in 2-3 occasions, and it sounds like credits were needed, credits were taken. So you, Mr. DeCoulis, you got your credits, and then along with that, there was a need for prompt fee payment. So that's really, it's just the same rules for all the LSPs that need to go through this process. You know, you need to be up to speed with continuing education components and also pay your fee so you can practice.
Mr. DeCoulis just stated, if an LSP fails to pay the annual fee by the date specified on the payment invoice sent by the board shall notify the LSP that his or her license will be suspended unless payment is made in full within 30 days. And what he's saying is he never received that notification.
well, what I'm saying to that is that it was sent to him along with his certificate. Once his license was reinstated at the board meeting, I notified the program coordinator, who then sent Mr. DeCoulis his certificate and an invoice. Mr. DeCoulis, and he will correct me if I'm misquoting him, says that he did not, and this is in his petition, that he did not receive the certificate and the enclosed invoice.
Yes,
and what I'm saying, I'm saying is that the certificate never came back. I specifically had Ms. Weiss check for returned mail.
So that is by way of certified mail, U.S. Postal Service.
Well,
and
I don't know how I don't know how Barbara sends the certificate. I don't know whether they go out certified mail or not. I'd have to find out about that. But the certificate is a wall certificate, and so everybody, all LSPs know what that looks like. It's sent with cardboard. It did not come back to us.
Mr. DeCoulis just stated, I never received either the payment invoice or notice. And he then states, invoice was not sent by certified mail.
It was in with the certificate once his license was reinstated. I mean, this is very convoluted, and I understand that the board members are trying to track this, but I think that the sequence of events is very clear. Mr. DeCoulis did not have sufficient credit to renew his license. He filed a petition for waiver. The board denied the petition for waiver. Mr. DeCoulis appealed that denial to the Superior Court, asking for injunctive relief. The Superior Court denied the request, and Mr. DeCoulis's license lapsed until he obtained the credits to renew his license. He obtained the credits to renew his license. The board reviewed his application for renewal and approved it. And that was when he received his certificate and the invoice for the annual fee.
Mr. DeCoulis just stated everything before May 11th is irrelevant.
So the board, as for our executive director, Beverly Roby, is ascertaining that that Mass DEP issued a certificate with the enclosed invoice, and
Mass DEP doesn't issue any of that.
pardon
The
me,
board does.
the board sent out, thank you, the board sent out the certificate with the invoice, and there was no returning back. There's no certificate that has come back to the LSP board offices, and the invoice was not paid. So that, I believe, is, I agree with Mr. Kulis that, prior history, it's been established and we are aware of that. And now it boils down to the board's assertion that the certificate did not come back to the board's offices. And therefore, there's no evidence, there's no fee payment, there was no invoice that was returned with a check.
He then stated, I paid the invoice.
Last week.
After the date that's been established, along with many other LSPs that have to pay this fee.
So even if allowing Mr. DeCoulis the benefit of the doubt and saying that the 90-day clock did not start running until May 11th, even assuming that everything that happened before May 11th is irrelevant, which I'm not acceding to, May 11th was still more than 90 days ago.
Mr. DeCoulis then states the board is still required to, quote, if an LSP fails to pay the annual fee by the date specified on the payment invoice sent by the board shall notify the LSP that his or her license will be suspended until payment is made in full within 30 days, unquote, 309 CMR 2.09.
But I'm hearing that the board contacted Mr. DeCoulis, yes, no?
Yes, he didn't pay the fee. It was mailed to him on sometime after May 11th, 2021. And so all I'm saying is that Mr. DeCoulis has been an LSP for a very long time. He's a very experienced LSP. He's taught courses, but the board has approved at least one course that I know of that he has taught. So I'm just saying that he is aware of what's due and what's not. And this is a situation of Mr. DeCoulis' own making, because he chose to appeal the denial of the petition for waiver. Otherwise, his license would have lapsed for failure to renew and obtain the required continuing education credit.
Mr. DeCoulis then states, Ms. Roby admitted that I was, quote, not mailed an annual fee invoice in December 2020, as were other LSPs, end quote.
Because his license was stayed before the court. He was not, and he didn't, okay. All I'm saying is that he was not in the category of licensees who automatically received an invoice because that matter was pending with the court. So actually, what happened before May 11th does matter, because everything, every petition for waiver, every appeal filed with the Superior Court delayed the normal progression of fee payments, billing, everything was stayed.
Yep.
And then Mr. DeCoulis's license was lapsed from the date of the December judge's decision until May 11th when the board approved it.
Mr.
It was-
DeCoulis then states, I'm quoting her email from October 29th, and then he then states, is the board going to ignore the notice provisions under 2.09?
This is a very difficult situation where, we're trying to sift through one argument, an answer is given, and then there's another question. I appreciate the gravity of the situation, but I think we have already established how, because of this Superior Court intervention, there was a stay. There was a stay, and nothing could happen until the courts rendered their opinion. Once that took place, Mr. DeCoulis got his credits. The board issued a certificate with an invoice. There was a timeline associated with prompt payment. That did not take place, and the board just received payment last week. That's really, in essence, at least in my mind, what I have in front of me to think about and deliberate on.
Mr. DeCoulis then states everything, he again states everything before May 11th is irrelevant.
Well, it's relevant as far as the stay, because basically the board has to wait until we have a clear reading from the courts. I mean, that's the due process.
He didn't have an active license to send out his annual fee notice in December. And so that's why it wasn't sent out with the regular LSPs. And so that's why we're on a different time frame.
Exactly.
Mr. DeCoulis then states the board is required to provide notice.
Okay, I think we should, I think we do, reading the regulations, provide notice that the license, the annual fee was not paid within the 90 days. And the license has lapsed.
If there was an invoice that went out, and I trust that it went out along with the certificate, that was the time to pay that invoice. That is a mode of communication.
And if the individual knew that the license was going to be reinstated, and I believe that he may have actually been on the call when we voted, and did not receive the certificate as apparently he claims, I think he would have contacted the board to find out why it wasn't in his hands, and we would have been able to identify that he did not receive the certificate and the invoice. But lacking that, I think the board has done what it's supposed to do. And again, not to harp on it, but I don't understand why that he didn't contact the board and find out why he didn't have a certificate or an invoice to pay.
Mr. DeCoulis then says, quote, the board shall notify the LSP that his or her license will be suspended unless payment is made in full within 30 days, unquote, 309 CMR 2.09.
So can I ask Mr. DeCoulis why did he proceed to pay because there is payment, there is an incoming payment that apparently was just received last week. So
he then states there was no notice as the board was supposed to provide.
Well, there was a certificate.
Beverly just called them.
Well, I assume the notice is in the original invoice.
Exactly.
I mean,
and I may I ask one last question, and then I have nothing further to say. Mr. DeCoulis, are you saying that you never received your certificate? Am I understanding that correctly? That you never received your certificate? Because what we're saying is that, what my office is saying is that the invoice was in with your certificate, was mailed with your certificate. So did you receive a certificate, your certificate?
He responded to him eventually paying. Mr. DeCoulis states, because I finally received an invoice. He hasn't responded to your current question yet.
Okay, thank you.
He just, Mr. DeCoulis just stated, correct. I never received my certificate or invoice in May.
Okay,
Can I
well
ask?
then go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to ask as another question, why, when he didn't receive a certificate, did he not contact the board?
Not his responsibility.
And when was the certificate sent?
In May, because Mr. DeCoulis attended the May 11th board meeting when his application was approved. And it was mailed shortly after that meeting because I notified Barbara.
Right, so it's 6 months, almost to the day, that we're hearing that this certificate did not make it to Mr. DeCoulis's address. But I just, you know, the fact that there was a fee that came in recently, I just seems to me like there's a huge, just, I cannot explain the timeline from those actions from.
I believe Beverly called him. Didn't you call him? It says it in the letter. That you called him on October 25th.
Yes, I did.
So that's
did,
what
and that was
prompted
yes.
the payment.
That's what prompted. That was what prompted the payment. Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Mr. DeCoulis just stated, my life has been hectic. I have personal issues I am dealing with. I am sorry I was not proactive. The board is supposed to mail me an invoice.
Well, I think a lot of board members here have talked about how it's imperative for the licensed site professionals to ensure that they're in good standing by way of taking all the courses that are needed through the continuing education program, as well as paying the fee on time. And there are regulations that provide the process and the pathway when those two situations don't happen. And here we are today.
Mr. DeCoulis just stated, how does the board justify not providing notice under 3.09 CMR 2.09?
So I've heard through the conversation today, an invoice was issued in May. It's almost 6 months. We never heard that there was no proactive incoming call to the board. And secondly, there was an affirmative call on October 25th, which apparently prompted fee payment by Mr. DeCoulis. So I'm already seeing, based on the information that's presented here and as represented, seems like there are 2 instances where notification has taken place, both written and also incoming telephonic. So that's my answer for your question with regards to how does the board, you know, how do we respond to 2.09?
Mr. DeCoulis then states, what about notice under 2.09? I paid the fee based on a received invoice. Mr. DeCoulis, oh, no, this is from Lori McCarthy. She states, the U.S. mail service has been very unreliable over the past year. It is entirely possible that Mr. DeCoulis did not receive these invoices certificates. The board should utilize services that provide receipts if they want to demonstrate that these notifications were indeed received. And then Mr. DeCoulis states,
who was that?
Lori McCarthy.
Okay.
And then Mr. DeCoulis just stated, are you aware that under 2.09, there is a second step?
Guess I want to understand why is it that other LSPs have been able to overcome this challenge, which is basically the two significant rules. One of the two significant rules: stay up on continuing education, pay your fees, and be in moral good standing and basically in support of all the credentials warranted to become an LSP. I just, I'm trying to understand the timeline here. Certificate mailed on May 11th, almost in 2 days, it will be a 6-month mark. There was no communication. Incoming call October 25th. Now we see a check, and here we are again.
Mr. DeCoulis stated, Ms. Roby admitted that I was, quote, not mailed an annual fee invoice in December 2020, as were other LSPs.
That's
Unquote.
because no other LSP was in a situation where they petitioned to the Superior Court, correct? So
Yeah.
thereby, he was not part of that batch in December because there was a stay. Mr. Coulis was seeking the preliminary injunction.
This is Patrick. I think what Mr. DeCoulis is saying is that if he received an invoice on May 11th and he failed to pay it, then what the regulation he's citing here is that the board, once the board did not receive that payment, it says here in this regulation that the board should notify the LSP that his or her license will be suspended at that point unless payment is made within 30 days. So it kind of says that what was for the invoice that was sent on May 11th, what was the date on that invoice?
Mr. DeCoulis states, I never received my certificate or invoice in May.
Again, then he should have been proactive and notified the board. I mean, we're rehashing the same issues.
Yeah, we're back in full circle. So I think is there anything else that Mr. Coulis has to offer? I've taken everything in. Are there any questions from the board members?
Mr. DeCoulis just stated, ignore the second, it asks the question, ignore the second step in the regulations of notice.
So any comments on that? I do not issue, we basically as a board, we're just listening. We're trying to bring the facts out. This is clearly not an easy one because it's clouded by many other issues and other processes that influence the timeline, but notwithstanding that, any comments on the second step Mr. DeCoulis is alleging? referencing, pointing to.
I hesitate to bring this up, but would it make sense for, and I'm not sure we want to do this, but would it make sense to basically look into this in specific detail, lay out the timeline, get everything in order so we can look at it all at one, like almost in a hard copy kind of thing, so we don't have to keep track of it in our heads, but lay out everything almost like an investigation to make sure we're doing everything correctly?
Mr. DeCoulis then states, the board's regulations clearly state that it, quote, shall notify the LSP that his or her license will be suspended unless payment is made in full within 30 days. And then he cites the regulation again, 309 CMR 2.09. And then he states, all the facts are before you, Gail.
Actually, the facts aren't before me, it's statements in some cases. And I
Right,
think what I'm
exactly.
trying to say is we want facts, then we need documentation, and we need to lay it out in order to make sure everything is understood. And it may come down to asking a question of why, when you knew you were expecting a certificate and you didn't get one, did you not contact the board? Because certainly there have been other instances when you have contacted the board for other issues. So that's my question. I mean, that's one of the questions I would have before I would be able to, you know, I want to put that into the record as well, those kinds of things. So I think it may be worth putting things in order, documented, and dealing with them, because I don't know that we're going to solve this today.
Let me
Mr.
ask this.
DeCoulis then states, see attached exhibits to my letter.
I think it's important that we also hear from the board. You know, we appreciate that you have sent out this via email document with attachments that was issued to the board on Friday, November 5th. Today is Tuesday, the 9th. You know, we really need to at least have an opportunity to, and I do agree with Gail, lay everything out, because this is your posture and position. And we're basically going by what we understand from the board's side. So we would, I think it's imperative. It is just for us to pause and reconcile.
Mr.
Okay,
DeCoulis
well,
then states,
go ahead.
my life has been hectic. I have personal issues I'm dealing with. I am sorry I was not proactive. Do you want me to lay out my personal issues?
No, we're not asking
Well,
for that. And
I think we need to get the facts from the board staff side. I mean,
yep, I was just about to say that.
We don't have, is just to when the notice went out, when the certificate went out, and the
Yep,
sequence of events on our side, which we don't have. So we might have what he thinks are facts on his side, but we don't have the board's.
right. And I sent to Mr. DeCoulis all of that information, the date, the judge, when the preliminary injunction issued, the May 11th meeting that he attended. So I will forward, because we have two more of these and other items on the agenda. So I sent that information to Mr. DeCoulis. I will make sure that it gets to the board so that, and I'll put it on the agenda for the next board meeting. But Deb and Gail have expressed a desire to see all of the facts that with dates. And so I'll do that.
Mr. DeCoulis.
Yeah, putting aside his request for, affirming that the license was not revoked, I mean, we have received payment at this point. Is this an appropriate time to reinstate him regardless of his request?
Mr. DeCoulis then states, the facts are in the exhibits. There is no evidence of the board mailing me an invoice in May and no evidence of notice under 2.09.
I think we need to verify if, be able to compel and be able to at least respond. I think it's fair.
Well, the other thing is it's still going to come down to the administrative staff's word against Mr. DeCoulis's word, because we're saying the bottom line is we mailed the information about the invoice to Mr. DeCoulis in May of 2021, along with his certificate. He's saying he never received the certificate, and therefore he never received the invoice.
That's correct.
And we're saying that the invoice and the certificate did not come back.
Right.
It was not returned to the board.
Right.
But
I
if the board
yep,
wants,
and
I'll provide all the details and dates.
yes, and
Mr.
I just want to note that Exhibit C that Mr. DeCoulis provided to us, there is a photocopy of a renewal notice that it speaks about dated, if I can try to see this correctly, it's March 1st, 2021. So there is communication already, which basically serves to inform that there is payment and warranted the resolution of him taking the credits, which he did. There is that expectation that there is a renewal notice. So I just want to at least make that noted. That's a renewal notice that precedes the copy of his check, which came in almost 6 months later.
Mr. DeCoulis then states, the bottom line is that there was no notice under 2.09. And he then states, I did not receive the invoice until last week.
And okay, and then just to also close the loop, Exhibit D talks about the October 21st letter. So how about if we move forward with Gail's and Deb's suggestion that the board works with the board staff to basically just respond to the timeline. I'd like to move that we do that. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so let's all go through the roll call. And again, the motion is for the board to have the space and time to respond. Greg?
Yes.
Deb?
And so this matter is tabled. That's the vote, right? It's
That is
tabled.
correct.
Okay.
That is correct. We would like to table it and basically lay out the timeline and supporting documentation, etc. And for discussion at the January meeting, there is no December meeting. So Greg?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Kirk?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Millie is a yes. Patrick?
Yes.
And David?
Yes.
This matter will then be tabled. The motion carries to do that.
And can I just ask board members, you would like for me to add this to the January meeting agenda, is that right?
That is correct.
And, January 2022 meeting, and you would like for me to provide further information on what the board did and when?
That
A
is
timeline.
correct. That is
Very
correct.
good.
Thank you.
Very good. Yep. Okay. There are two other, candidates who are in this similar situation. Excuse me, Ms. Winterburn, Deirdre Winterburn, I spoke with her on the 25th. And she was invited to the meeting as well.
She is in attendance.
She is in attendance, good. And so she indicated, I'm glad that she's here so she can respond. She indicated that she had been working from home or teleworking, pardon me, and so she did not receive her mail. And then, I mean, Ms. Winterburn is free to add any comments that she chooses.
So what's the issue or question? The same situation that an annual fee was not paid?
The annual fee was not paid. And my conversation with Ms. Winterburn on the 25th of October, during my conversation, she indicated that she was teleworking and that she was not in her office at Woodward and Curran, and she did not receive it, the invoice.
Ms. Winterburn commented no comment, or type message no comment.
So I'm sorry, I just have a question. How is, and I just want to just understand the facts. How is that different from LSPs and public-private professionals that also telework during the COVID-19 global pandemic? I'm just trying to not be disrespectful, clearly, but better understand the arguments set forth by Ms. Winterburn. Was there a breakdown in, I guess, forwarding mail by the company? I'm just trying to better understand. I received my mail, you know, during this telework period.
What are we trying to decide here? Was there something in the package? Is there a letter? Is there is someone appealing a decision? What are we trying to vote
Well,
for?
no, there was no petition in the packet, but I'm just saying that I was reporting on the 9 folks who had not yet paid their annual fee, and that requires their license, that their license be revoked and that they have to sit for the exam all over again. And so this was notice and an opportunity for those 9 people to be heard. So there's no petition before you. But Ms. Winterburn is in the same position as the other people, except that she says that she was teleworking and didn't receive her mail.
Can I just add, sorry, Beth, go ahead.
Nope, I'm done. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask if other LSPs at the same company all renewed their licenses, because they must have been telecommuting too. There must have been a company policy, and that would be for everyone, not just at this company, but other companies where they would have had some policy about forwarding mail or something like that. So I think that's something that has to be taken into account, that if other people in the same position did manage to renew their licenses, why would anything be different for an individual?
Well, I mean, that's a pretty big firm, and I don't know. I can't really say. I can't be responsible for what happens with the mail. What the regulations indicate is that mailing to the last known address of an LSP is as good as it gets. And that goes for service in terms of any court, the last known address. Now, there are some instances, of course, where you have to serve people in hand, and that requires a constable, but this is not one of those.
But again, it gets to this whole point of LSPs, all the other LSPs seem to have known that even if they didn't get it, they would have tracked it down, because their obligation is to know that they have an annual fee due. Is my-
I totally agree that that's a general statement that applies to all the LSPs. You know, they come to the table looking for resolution or at least a venue to plead their case. Again, I just don't see how telework would have been an impediment because opinions are still being filed and being rendered. So it's imperative that each LSP is making sure that they can practice and, you know, they're taking their continuing education courses, paying the fees. So I just, based on what I'm seeing, I just do not, I just don't see anything remarkable that makes me pause and think that there would be another outcome.
I'm sorry if I missed things. Can I just confirm, did the second notice go out as well? And this is basically past both of those notices?
I don't know. In this, I mean, each case is an individual case. I don't know, Jamie. I don't know. But what I'm saying to you is, you know, there's only so much effort that I can afford to expend. And this is one of the reasons I'm behind on other things. This is a staffing issue and not the fault of the LSP, but I have 400 some odd people to chase every year for an annual fee. And it comes down to 9 people, 5 of whom have retired or given up their license, and just these 4.
Mm-hmm. No, we understand,
Is that-
Beverly.
Okay.
I
It
think,
comes down to just these 4.
yes.
So, I
So
mean,
we did.
I go ahead.
Mhm. No,
Sorry,
go
Nick,
ahead,
go
Beverly. I'm sorry.
Nope, I'm just saying it's I understand that it's frustrating for the LSPs. I understand that COVID-19 has affected every aspect of our lives. But I've kept the board going despite COVID. And so and we are a paper-driven agency. I mean, our program coordinator is in the office 1 day a week on Thursday. And I've been in the office more than almost anyone at DEP during COVID to make sure that the processes that we are regulatorily required to implement happen. And so it comes down to 4 LSPs.
Right, and I think the message has been sent back from the board to the practitioners that we need to be in this together. A license is a big deal. And, you know, if I was a licensed professional, I would be sure to contact the board if there's any questions. And you've always been there for the LSPs. You know, with information. There's LSP board.
Exactly. And the personal phone calls. But let me just say this, and I know this is totally irrelevant, but I've been a lawyer for almost 40 years. And in those 40 years, I know that every March I must pay my fees. And I know that whether or not because I've been a lawyer for so long, I know that whether or not they send me an invoice, I still have to pay. I mean, it's because it's my license, it's my livelihood. And so I make sure whether I've moved or changed jobs or the mail is not reliable, the Board of Bar Overseers doesn't care. And if my fees are not paid by a certain date, I believe it's March 15th, I lose my license.
Yes,
and so this is a different standard. But I'm talking about some of the things that the board members have discussed today, and that is personal responsibility. We don't miss
Agreed. And-
registering our cars. We don't miss renewing our driver's license because there are consequences to not doing it.
I think the link to Ms. Winterburn's plea today, she states that she has been teleworking. I would argue during the global pandemic, and we're still in it, many of us are still teleworking, and there's still cases and projects and just opinions to be rendered that are being rendered. So I do not have a piece of paper in front of me, and I know that, unlike Ms. Oostings or Mr. DeCoulis, I don't know if there's, I guess the ask is to, are we being asked to take a vote as to whether we deny or approve this request? And I believe there's still another LSP, 4 out of 9, I think, Beverly.
Yeah,
There's another one.
What's the fourth one?
So,
There's no request associated with this one.
Yeah.
No, there's no request associated with the next one.
Okay, so
But
let's
I'm
move
looking it
on.
up. Sorry.
Yep. So I think if there's no request associated with this one, it sounds to me that there's no petition on the packet. Basically, there's no the license is inactive. Is that by virtue of not responding on a timely fashion?
And the other thing is that March 1st was 8 months ago.
Yes. So I think we're just articulating that we just discussed the 3rd out of 4 LSPs that are caught in this situation with regards to, I know we did have 2 formal petitions for waiver. Pardon me, we're acting on the inactive status as a result of the unpaid annual fees. But sounds like we don't have anything, we just don't have the check from Ms. Winterburn. And I think there's a 4th one also, Beverly, that you noted.
Yes. And this one, well, you haven't ruled on Ms. Winterburn, but, there's no petition before you, as Mr. Austin has indicated. So that's that. So it doesn't require a vote. But Mr. Neil Drawis, you'll recall he was before the board last month about his application to renew license. And the issue is, can someone who hasn't paid their annual fee renew their license? So Mr. Drawis has obtained the necessary credit to renew his license, but he didn't pay his annual fee as it was due. And he is one who received the notice. I don't know why he didn't pay it until last week or whenever I spoke with him or he was notified. But this is I saved the best for last because I don't know whether or not someone can renew their license when they haven't paid their annual fee. And if they renew their license, but they haven't paid their annual fee, is their license subject to revocation?
Again, I think we need to, I appreciate you bringing these up, but don't we need something to respond to, a formal presentation? I don't think we can just talk this through.
Well, okay, I agree, but Mr. Drawis is waiting for his certificate. So I'll just hold off. You want me to there's
So,
no paperwork before you, but you know, if you want, if the board wants to table all three of these matters and allow these LSPs to further respond. I know that you've already given me direction on what you want regarding Mr. DeCoulis, and I can ask for the same for the other two from Ms. Winterburn and Mr. Dwalis.
so to recap, Ms. Winterburn, basically she states
Her
that
reason,
she had been teleworking and therefore did not receive her annual fee, correct?
that's right.
Okay.
And she's
And then,
still on the line, and so she can respond too. But yes, that's correct.
okay, so that's really what's in front of us, the aspect of teleworking, getting in front of paying the
Yes.
waiting for the bill and getting that bill paid, and you know the argument is I was teleworking, I did not receive this bill. I heard from you that the board's obligation is to issue correspondence to the address that is on file, on record. So I just feel that on that score, the issuance of the invoice to the company, if that went out, it went out to the last address, and then begs the question as to how that correspondence gets forwarded over to Ms. Winterburn. And I just, in my estimation, that is up and beyond the intention of the board. We are given an address, we issue the information, and then how that internal process plays out between the company and the employee that's teleworking, that to me is a separate and apart issue. I don't know if the other board members agree. Because even if we had a second notice, the second notice would have gone out to that company, to her company, and then if teleworking, if that's the challenge, it would have been the same thing, first, second, third notice. So that's what I have to say on the Winterburn case. And as it pertains to Mr. Lawless, is it? Again, no petition.
DRAWAS. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, Millie. DRAWAS.
He pronounces it draws.
Draws. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. So no petition on the packet. We did speak about this matter during the last month. There were some credits that needed to, pardon me, in past meetings, there were some credits that needed to be obtained. He's obtained the credits, but did not pay the annual fee. So now the question in front of us is, can someone renew their license? Whereas he received his credits, a certificate is ready to go out, and the bill usually accompanies the certificate. So that's the question. Whether
actually, in his case, he would have. Mr. DeCoulis is the only LSP who did not, whose invoice did not go out in the regular December 2020, January 2021 mailing. Everyone else, all the other 400 some odd LSPs, their invoice for annual fees was mailed to their last known address on file with the board.
Very important. Thank you. That really clarifies it. So yes, this is the one where he received the invoice. There were there was a deficit in the credits, needed to secure those credits. The credits were secured. The bill was not paid, that was issued back in March. And now we are in this predicament with the unpaid but secured credits. But we did give notice.
Received his invoice, or should have.
Yes. Well, my recommendation is that we consider, albeit there's no formal petition on the packet, there is going to be some action from the board, or at least, you know, we've talked about it. There's going to be an outcome that comes out of this conversation, and therefore my recommendation is that we bundle all these cases for discussion in January after we secure additional information.
Millie, this is Greg. That would be fine with me, but I'd like us to think about how to get to an endpoint, and whether there's, given the situation, you know, with work, et cetera, and COVID, whether there's an exception made for these individuals so they don't have to reapply, or whether that's not relevant and they will have to reapply since their licenses have been suspended. And Beverly, like, all of these licenses have been suspended at this time. Is that correct?
Actually, revoked is the term.
Revoked,
if you
sorry.
look at the, yes, if you look at the regulations, they're beyond suspension because they're beyond the 90 days. Anyone beyond the 90 days, this is what I'm saying, and what Gail was saying, I call people because this is such a draconian measure.
Right.
They the folks have to retake the exam. Yeah. I'm sorry, Greg, did I answer your question?
You did. I wanted to confirm that all of them had their license revoked, which is what I thought had happened. But is there any other way that we can handle these exceptional cases where, again, regardless of how they came to these, they all have their own stories and situations, personal situations. But is there some way to resolve the problem, or are they all stuck with having to retake the exam?
Well, first of all, Greg, stuck is an amorphous concept because this is a situation of the LSP's own making. These are the only 4 LSPs in this predicament, as I indicated, and the problem for the board, and to directly answer your question, Greg, the problem for the board is that under the petition for waiver, which is what hello? Hello? Hello?
We're here.
Yep. If people could mute their phones while the primary person is speaking, that would be most appreciated.
And so the point I'm gonna make very quickly is that under the only remedy, Greg, is a petition for waiver. And under 2.12, the board does not have the authority to waive fee payment. You have the authority to do all kinds of other things and fashion all kinds of remedies, but you cannot waive fee payment under 2.12.
That's not an issue right now, though. The fees have come in at this point, correct?
Yeah. For some of them, yes. I don't know if all 4. I don't know if all 4 have been paid up. I have to check.
Okay, so
I do.
To your point, Greg, I think that the board has discretion to hear a petition for waiver, and specifically, I think the concern is the requirement for reapplication, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the ultimate question.
Yes, yeah, and then
if we don't have the authority to grant a waiver, so be it. But I think we could all appreciate, whether we have the license or not, that how what situation to put somebody in to have to reapply. But
absolutely.
Yeah, if we don't have the authority, we don't have the authority. But if the situations are such that, and given extraordinary circumstances, we would be able to help them, whether we're obligated to or not. I think we could. I would certainly like to get to an endpoint. And if we can't help them, we should tell them now, to not wait and make them wait till January.
I totally understand. I think if the remedy is having to retake an exam, there's limited opportunities throughout the year to do so. So,
isn't it just a limited filing, a limited application?
It's a limited application that they have to file. I've cited the reg there. It's under 3.05, 309 MR 3.05. And under that regulation, it's a limited application that has to be filed when a licensee, when a license is revoked. But they do have to sit for the exam again.
yeah. So, the other thing we can consider is just, Beverly, if you could guide me here, if there are venues where the board members can meet, whether it's an executive session or extraordinary session or some kind of session that we can expedite this discussion.
I'll check. I don't know if this meets the qualifications for an executive session, but under the open meeting law, but it may. But the problem with that, Millie, is that I think these people want to be present and comment. And so if we do this in executive session, it's closed.
Yes, correct.
So even if it fits under one, so I'm sorry, to answer your question directly, even if these deliberations fit under the executive session exemption of the open meeting law and can be held in private, that will exclude those people we're discussing.
Okay. So, and my apologies, Beverly, and I really appreciate your guidance here, just giving me at least pathway. So for example, if we, is there, I mean, I feel as though we received a lot of information from these individuals. I don't know if the fourth LSP is on the line. I know that you reached out to this LSP to let him know that we would be discussing this. So my question is this: do we feel satisfied with the information that was presented to us? And I say that because there's really no petition in the packet. Basically, you're just reporting back that there are 4 LSPs that are in some sort of related predicament as it pertains to unpaid annual fees. So my question is whether, with that said, we have what we need to potentially invoke into an executive session, and after this session, render a pathway, a decision and a pathway.
You're asking me. I don't know whether or not this fits under the executive session exemption. I'll investigate that and give you my opinion.
Okay.
But Millie, whether it's an executive session or not, I think Beverly has related the individual circumstances to all these people, and again, their circumstances are different, but the outcome is the same. And
agreed.
I don't need to hear any more from these individuals. I understand their situation, but deliberating whether it's in public session or in executive, I'm not sure there's any need for executive session based on my understanding of executive sessions. But I mean, we wouldn't have an executive session just simply so we can speak openly. we should be doing that at an open meeting. So I would say though, if some of these individuals who have not put in a waiver application, they should probably do that and make that application so that it's on record. So if we were able to do anything for them, we can. If Beverly's just going to say we can't do anything anyway, then they're wasting their time. But I'm not hearing her say that. She needs to maybe do a little bit more research to see if there's some.
No, I don't need to research anything except Millie's request for an executive session. The rule, the regulation 3.05 is clear. This is the ball is in the board's court, specifically with Ms. Winterburn and Mr. I'm sorry, Greg, help me pronounce his name again.
Dwas.
Dwas. Mr. Dwas. And forgive me, Mr. Dwas, if you're on the line. The situation is clear in those two cases, as it was in Ms. Osting's case. Those three are similar. They received their invoice, they didn't pay.
Right.
And so Ms. Osting's petition was denied because you found that she should have notified the board of her change of address. Ms. Winterburn, the issue is whether or not COVID and teleworking allows you to not pay your annual fee 8 months out.
Right.
And the same, because they received the invoices were mailed. They're not saying they didn't receive them, or I'm not saying that the invoices were delayed in mailing. They received, the invoices were sent to their last known address. They did not pay.
Right.
Mr. Dwas and Ms. Winterburn. And
Right.
They have not filed petitions for a waiver.
Correct.
If you want me to offer them, those two, Mr. Dwas and Ms. Winterburn, an opportunity to present a petition based on what you've heard today, I will happily do that, and we can deliberate those petitions in January along with Mr. DeCoulis. But it's really the board's decision.
I guess in the way you're presenting it, Beverly, it sounds cut and dry that they did not meet the requirements. I guess the question I have is, do we have an authority to make an exception because of just a COVID exception, if you will, whether or not it was their responsibility? And if the answer is no, then I don't think we should be wasting their time or ours by telling them to put an application in. If the answer is possibly, well, then it's worthwhile continuing to discuss this.
Well, by extension, that would affect the vote that we just took on Ms. Saskia's Osting's.
She's a little bit
matter
different in
because
that went on for, well, yeah, I guess it was COVID related also, I guess. You're right.
So
Yeah.
I think,
Well, no, it's different. Here's the distinction. Ms. Osting left her place of employ, and she did not change her address. So she didn't receive her invoice because she didn't change her address with the board.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
So Ms. Winterburn and Mr. Dwas received their invoices were mailed. Ms. Winterburn has indicated that she teleworks and didn't get her mail. I don't know what Mr. Dwas, why Mr. Dwas didn't pay. I don't know.
right. So, and I think, so that's correct, Beverly. Thank you for that. That's extremely important. And as it pertains to Ms. Winterburn's case, she's articulated she was teleworking, she did not receive the invoice, but we in fact issued the invoice to the recorded place where the invoice needed to go. And then the second piece to this is that there's no petition in the packet. So we need to decide as a board if we want to extend this process to Ms. Winterburn.
No, because there's nothing's been submitted. Doesn't
I think
preclude her from submitting something in the future, but right now, there's nothing for us to kick down the road.
right. And as it pertains to telework, what I would argue is we all teleworked. I think had the invoice not been sent out to the correct place, last place, which is the official place of recorded, I think we would be having a different conversation. But the board and the board staff did what they needed to do and what they had to do. So I would say by extension, there's no requirement that now we are supposed to make sure that it also goes to a second alternate address.
Well, I agree, Millie, and add this to the mix. I don't know who's teleworking and who's not.
I know.
I don't know who's in the office and getting their mail and who's not getting their mail. I can't know that. And I can't be responsible for, my office cannot be responsible for that administratively.
So to close the loop on Ms. Winterburn's license, as it stands right now, it's revoked and there's a pathway for coming back to active membership, correct?
They have to sit for the exam. They have to reapply with a limited under 3.05. This is why I call people at the last stage of the process, this third letter that we send, or second, to let people know this is what's happened. But yeah, the rule is really draconian and pretty inflexible in terms of if you don't pay the fee within 90 days, and now we're 8 months down the line.
Yeah. Okay.
That's almost a year. We're getting, yeah. Barbara is actually getting ready. She's asked for the invoices for 2021 to be printed so they can go out during our recess in December. I mean,
yeah,
this is
exactly.
this is why we recess.
Okay.
So that we in December, so that I can conduct the exam, we can get out the annual fee invoices and wrap up the year.
Understood. Thank you so much for that. So, board members, it sounds to me that basically there's no petition in front of us. The telework, I just, just what's been presented to us, I don't believe that it rises to a consideration that speaks to our board's obligation as it pertains to communicating that there's an unpaid fee. The board issued that invoice. So the pathway appears for the Ms. Winterburn case that it's a revocation, and there's a process that needs to be followed after that. Do you agree? We just need some finality.
Yeah, this is Greg. I agree at this point. It sounds like we do not have flexibility, and while we can personally feel sympathy for them, we are stuck, and I believe they are too. If they wish to become an LSP again, they will have to go through the process. And I guess I was just trying to figure out if we should even bother to tell them to put an application in or a request for a waiver, and it sounds like the answer is no. Nor should we pick it up again in January.
Well, I think it sounds to me that LSPs can do what they wish in terms of putting in a petition, but I think we are being clear that what's important is that the board issues the invoice to where it needed to go. And in this case, it went where it needed to go. So we're just telegraphing that.
Yep.
And then the second part, I think, if Ms. Winterburn's on the line, is just, you know, we're later in the agenda today, we are going to be asking Beverly to provide us with an update with regards to the upcoming exam. I don't even know if there is time to navigate between that and the planned exam date, you know, to basically file for. I mean, I just do not know, but.
No, I can tell you there is not. I'll give my
Okay.
exam report in a few minutes, but there is not, because even if the 4 LSPs who are in this position filed a limited application, it would still have to be approved by an ARP.
Okay.
So they would have to file the app, go through the entire process again, draconian. They'd have to file a limited application. They wouldn't have to provide new references depending on when they were approved, but that would have to go through, be assigned to an ARP. The ARP would have to follow the process and review the application, approve or deny the application, and then they would have to be deemed eligible to sit for the exam. And I can just give my exam report right now. The exam is going to be December 8th or December 9th, and we're not going to get, so it can't be done. It can't be done.
Yeah, I'm glad we're having this conversation, because clearly this affects LSP's, you know, their standing.
Yes. I mean, it is with no joy that I miss these 9 calls every year. It's not, it is with no joy that I do this, but, you know, when you look at our numbers of, you know, what do we have,
53 or
453 LSPs, and we've got 4 folks out of that. What is that?
Yeah, it's
less than 1%.
no. Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I think the takeaway message is, please be mindful of your CEU credits. We really work hard to make sure that we can approve courses, you know, and impart that flexibility, whether it's, you know, we're coming back to a little bit of in classroom, but for the most part, virtual is okay, and paying the fee. It's extremely important. So where does that leave us with Mr. Neil Dua? Again, no petition on the packet. He came to our forum a few months back with regards to courses that were lacking. He's taken the courses. The fee came in late, correct?
With Mr. Duas, I don't know whether or not he's paid his fee. I'd have to look.
Okay.
Whether or not he's paid his fee, but what I'm saying is we can't. The question about him is more pressing, Mr. Duas, because we can't issue his certificate if he didn't pay his annual fee for the past 8 months.
Right.
He received his invoice. I mean, I'll look into that more clearly to get a clearer picture. I have to look at my notes to see when I spoke with him about this. But, I mean, again, this has taken up a lot of the board's time. The bulk of the meeting has been spent today on 4 LSPs. And, you know, they deserve a notice, an opportunity to be heard, but COVID has been with us for going on 2 years now. We're all teleworking. We're all still responsible. I can't say I didn't get something in the mail, and I mean, I just have to depend on Go ahead.
Beverly, my only issue here is I just want to make sure that the board has followed its own responsibilities. We've talked about the invoices going out and verifying that they've gone out, but did the notice go out under 209 that notifies the LSP that their license will be suspended unless payment is made within 30 days? Did that second notice happen?
I'll find out.
Because that's important.
Yes.
And if payment is not made within that 30-day period, the license is suspended automatically for 90 days. And then there's a suspension period where they can reinstate. So have these LSPs been suspended for 90 days? Like we just need to verify that we've followed our part and we've crossed all of our T's and dotted all of our I's.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that was you, Jamie, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that was Jamie.
Great. Well, thank you. So seeing that there is no remedy that could even be had between, with regards to these LSPs availing themselves to the December meeting, what I would like to offer is that we, Beverly, if you could please kindly double check that these notices follow the requirements of 209.2, and we can come back publicly to the fold in January. That's really, to me, so that we are not going to be able to resolve, and it's unfair for us to have to ask Beverly to pause here and look for documentation. I don't think that really benefits the process.
Well, I'm not going to do that.
And she cannot do that clearly.
No, I can't do that. I can't do that. But I absolutely will.
I'm not suggesting we can do it right now, but I just think that's something we definitively need to be able to answer.
So so our only pathway is to pick up this conversation in January, Jamie.
Yes.
Well, you've denied Ms. Osting.
Yes, we did.
Okay. All right. And I will find out about notices. I apologize. My lawn guy is here and he's right by the side of my house. So I will make sure that I have information at the January meeting regarding notices sent to the LSPs under 2.09.
Yes. And that is for Mr. DeCoulis, Ms. Winterburn, and Mr. Duah.
Okay. I will do that.
Thank you so much, Beverly, and the entire board for weighing in. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.
So, Beverly, we are in item 8, October 2021 quarterly fee report.
Okay, so with respect to the quarterly fee reports, the most recent is October 2021, and there are 4 LSPs who have not paid their quarterly fees.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna speed through the rest of the agenda items I'm responsible for, if you don't mind.
Please.
Item 9, I sent out a notice yesterday trying to schedule the January 2022 meeting for the exam committee, and I will follow up with responses on that. With respect to the December exam, will be held in Ciro, Worcester. There are 12 eligible candidates. There are 9 of the 12, are first-time takers. There are a couple of folks who are eligible to take the exam for the second time. There are 12 people counting today's approved application. So I don't know whether or not all 12 are going to sit for the exam, which is why I have 2 dates designated. But I'll finalize that, and will offer the exam and get in touch with those people within the next day or so that they will have a month. But I've pretty much been keeping in touch with them in terms of the likelihood of dates. So that's that report.
Great. Thank you, Beverly. And clearly that will follow all of the COVID mask mandates, et cetera, as per the city of Worcester. Okay, so now we're moving into item number 11, Continuing Education Committee report. If Dave, you could kindly please provide us with a report to the board.
Yes, we had a meeting about a year ago, and we approved 5 courses. 3 were new approval requests and 2 were reapproval requests. And the next meeting will be in January 2022.
Great. And with regards to action, the committee recommendations, seeing that there were recommendations, motions took place, I would like to put a motion to adopt the recommendations from the Continuing Education Committee.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. So please say yes when I call your name. Greg?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Kurt? Kathy?
Yes.
Millie is a yes. Patrick?
Yes.
And David? Chairperson for the Continuing Ed, Dave, are you, is
Yeah.
that a yes? Thank
Yeah, I
you.
didn't hear my name called, sorry. Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. So motion carries. Other business, anything else that needs to be discussed? Hearing none, we will move on to item number 12. Jamie, if you could just recap the professional conduct meeting, and I understand that there is no action in front of us, but kindly please provide us with the recap.
No, there were no updates and no action taken.
Thank you. Any other business? If none, I'd like to move forward with other business. And Beverly, if you could please provide the summary of the discussions that took place today during the Regulations Committee meeting.
Sure. We worked really hard on some of the definitions that are more nettlesome today, in particular the online and webinar courses, on demand, pardon me, and live webinar courses. And we're almost through section 3.09. And so we've made some progress. I think that we may be able to wrap 309 up in January.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the report.
That's really exciting news. Thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing the draft version of the regulations. Yeah. And then, Beverly, there's a request from the Association of State Boards of Geology from the state of Georgia. If you could kindly provide us with an update on that.
I don't have an update. I'm asking the board to review this. The state of Georgia sent this to me. They have asked for, they wanted to include this on their website. It's the Georgia Association of the State Board, the Association of State Boards of Geology in Georgia. And if you have, board members have no objections or corrections, I just didn't want to approve something that the state of Georgia is going to put up on their website without having the board members review, in particular, the requirement.
I think I did have a comment, Beverly. I don't remember what it is now. It was a minor comment.
Do you want to email me? Why don't you board members please do this? If you have comments about the Georgia request, just email them to me, and I'll put them in an email to my contact in Georgia and copy you. if you have
That's-
comments, just send them to me.
Okay, that sounds fair. I did have some comments, including
Good.
the registration status and also information update, just to make sure that we can catch it up. There was a change in date, but I will provide you with those comments by email, you and the entire board members.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I
that's what I
know-
was going to
I'm-
suggest.
what-
I'll send it out as well to everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I
Okay,
mean, I know that we
Sorry.
only have, nope, I'm just saying, I know that the number is wrong. They had 503, and of course, we're not at 503 anymore.
Yeah, correct. There's also,
So that,
yeah, the information updated is just the year, so 2020.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
but please email it to me. Email it to me. Okay, so jumping into the executive office update, I wanted to let the board members know that the executive office is moving to a hybrid model of in-office work and telework beginning November 2nd and December 31st, 2021 is a staggered return to work for a lot of people, and some are going to stay at home. It depends on the manager, the supervisor, the secretariat, the agency, and all of that. But they're building a lot of flexibility. I'm hoping that this will make a difference in being able to get some work done, to at least be in the office to deal with some of the paperwork. So we're going back in. Personnel budget and fees. You're welcome. Personnel budget and fees. I'm continuing to look for help from Mass DEP, and Millie's going to talk a little more about that when she talks about item 13E. I did want to say that I have prepared memoranda that I'm going to submit to the commissioner regarding 2 vacancies. I've reported, Millie and I interviewed 2 promising candidates, and so we're going to forward those 2 names to the commissioner and then on to EEA. Hopefully, they're outstanding candidates, and hopefully they'll go straight to the governor's Office of Boards and Commissions. We have 2 outstanding public records requests. I'm hoping to get those sent out this week. I know I said at the last meeting that I would get it done, but I just haven't been able to. But this week, I should be able to get them done. And in fact, the whole month of December, I should be able to get more done. So that's it.
Great, thank you. And I just wanted to let the board members know that yesterday I provided board members, Beverly and Barbara Weish, for the purposes of filing this letter into today's meeting docket, an updated, refreshed letter addressed to Commissioner Suberg, requesting that he consider, approve, and act on behalf of the board members' request, the posting of the EA4 position as an interim fix, using the temporary relocation incentive program, the TRIP program, again as an interim action until a permanent position is posted through Mass Careers. That is something that Beverly is working on right now. And in fact, also she reported last month that he is also focusing on the general counsel candidate, filling that slot. So the commissioner's receptive, ready to act. This letter went out yesterday. I confirmed with him this morning that he had received it. I again expressed that the board members are looking for an additional help until that time that we can have somebody permanently fill the EA4 position that is sorely needed. So again, you will be hearing more. I will be letting you all know as soon as I hear that in fact there is an affirmative expression of hopefully candidates that will be interested in availing themselves to this opportunity. Any questions? Okay, seeing no questions, there will be no December 2021 meeting. Our next meeting will be on January 11th. This meeting is adjourned at 3:22 p.m. and I wish you all a very nice holiday and please stay safe. We'll see you in January 2022.
Bye-bye. Happy holidays,
you.
everyone.
Happy holidays,
Thanks, everyone.
everyone.
Happy holidays.